The main problem is that melee fighters simply find running uninteresting.
It works, but the second part appeared.
Why player completed first island didn't start second?
One can see this is not the archer's plan. He hasn't seen Hade's plan on mobile.
So let's be honest. First, why did you decide to create a melee fighter? Let's not make a clown out of the archer. Let's think about what makes playing a melee fighter fun.
Perhaps it's a feeling of some fighting, impact. There are drownings, pop, zor. Yes. Yes. We aimed for that feeling you feel every hit. Your enemies fly apart. That's what we were going for.
I'm talking more about the feelings. This is subjective, not expert. Because game design is sometimes a subjective thing. Okay, let's think about what is well done in the archer. Here's what's cool about it. If we take the core gameplay specifically, I think the essence of the archer is the initial reaction speed when you need to take out a character. You stand, you shoot. But at some point, you need to make a choice. Stay and finish shooting or run somewhere. And this is precisely the delicate moment where, A, it tests the speed of your reaction. Well, sometimes these guys make it so that your reaction speed doesn't matter. If they have decided that you will die now, you will die. It feels like I'm always running somewhere here. Here I have mobs appearing, and I have to run to each mob to strike. The archer doesn't have this problem. I just shoot from different types of weapons. There are various trail effects. I get skins. It's all somehow. One thing leads to another, and in the end, I start with a single arrow. Then I have 15 mega crossbows. Everything is pulsating. Everything is so cool and awesome. But in this case, I just have to run around. And I will explain subjectively why the retention is so low. Because running is not interesting. In each new location, you get 1 or 2 waves of mobs. Well, roughly 8 to 10 of them. That is, in each location, you need to make 8 to 10 long movements, sometimes even more, just to catch some guy. You can't just stand in the center and control it, like, I don't know, how. Respawn from the AWP, you can't do that. And this is the most frustrating topic. As for monetization, regarding in-app purchases, do not deal with it right now. I'll explain why. If your goal is to temporarily boost something, to increase revenue by 20% without cannibalizing by 10%, then that is not a goal, that is not a task. Implementing in-app purchase system should be based on the game's economy and calculated balance. But again, what is AWP? It is when you have, well, generally somewhere, even if inflationary, but in some points a deficit economy. Here you have dopamine, and here you have a small deficit, right? The player converts. But the thing is, again, subjectively, based on your game, I did not see for myself any point of conversion, or even the desire to convert. Perhaps because I played a lot back in the day, in the 19th year, or even in the 18th, when the Archer came out. I played the Archer a lot. And I played it. I've done 10 dungeons and spent around $100. So, am I the target audience for the Archer? Yes. Will I be giving up the Archer? There is a certain market volume. There are some brands in this market. And you have an attempt, or rather, well, an attempt task. You have an attempt task to bite off this small piece. It does not matter if it's $5 or 500 million. Take a bite and start eating the pie. The next question is, how? I don't know. Will you make me stop playing the Archer and start playing as you? Or how, even if I start playing your game, will you make or ask me to stop donating to the Archer and give you money instead? I have not answered these questions for myself. It seems that you don't have an answer either.
Have to pick one. Support both. If you support one, you can't support the other.
You can.
The questions are great and fundamental. We keep coming back to them legally and analyzing what our problem is.
The main problem is that melee fighters simply find it boring to run around the map all the time. And here lies a tricky moment. Firstly, if you add some kind of ranged weaponry, just different types of weapons, it essentially turns into an archer. And here, your unique feature kind of gets lost, but also kind of doesn't. The second important point was about the controls. I'm running around with the joystick. Somewhere around the turns, 180-degree turn, it jerks. How are your animations made? I mean, you have some kind of controller in Unity mechanism, right? And this animation, it's blended, right? Try to make, yes, complicate a short transition animation of some sort. Because right now his stride is too wide. That is, he is running with long steps. I try to turn back, and he, doesn't turn himself, but it's as if he's moving like a tank. You get what I mean, right?
It's as if the tank's barrel is rotating.
From a subjective point of view, as a player, this will change my feeling of control. Because at the moment, it seems that when I turn the joystick, the character's movement and the movement of my joystick do not quite match each other. This is the biggest problem with such products. Well, with any shooters in general, where with one button, I don't know, let's take some mob or zombie, there are a lot of such examples. This is the biggest, most profound and significant tasks. It's about feelings, it's about impact. In the game, I noticed that my weapon changes randomly. There's a club, a mace, and a sword. Something else, but I would like my gaming experience to change when I receive something different. Plus, what I personally really missed. Look, here running up. Have to do a lot of running around, right? Well, just to hit the guy. If a guy is standing here, this NPC, and I am standing here, for some reason I want to tap a few times, and he will just auto-jump and smash everyone. This is somewhat implemented, but this movement, well, some kind of dash movement, is implemented, I think, only on the third hit. So it's tap, 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 and the third hit is, I think, quite powerful. More powerful. That is what I noticed while playing with the hammer. But I want him to dash towards the enemy. What will happen then? First, it seems that this will be more interesting, because with every tap, there is not just a swing in place, but some kind of impact. Like, he gets closer and then really hits that guy. It's important. This is subjective. This would be more interesting to me, but it's just as subjective. Let's say, like with Kirill von Inferno, and I absolutely hate that castle. Although I love Heroes 3, I still play them every day.
Did you complete the tutorial? It explains the dash mechanic and how to use it. I missed that. When I played, I moved with a dash. I didn't run.
It's inconvenient with long swipe.
I agree that it is inconvenient from the swiping perspective. What I felt was missing for more normal control was buttons. If there was just a button, I would play through it. And also tap. I have a mixed question about it. There are auto attacks, meaning you press the auto button, which is more of a question for Sasha, and there is tapping. I pressed the auto button and I was just moving around. For me, the issue wasn't pressing because I didn't feel the need to run somewhere. I wasn't out of reach and wanting to run. Have you tried playing like that?
So I tried describing gaming experience. I'm asking if you tried it or not. I didn't try it. They showed me that dash, and I didn't like it. I don't understand how I am supposed to dash towards the mob and do something else at the same time. I mean, it's all subjective. It's a mismatch of target audiences or something else.
I'm just asking about the gaming experience. What if you tried it? Maybe it would be different. I agree with what you described about the enemies. Like there's a problem with having to run up to them, but once they showed that there's a dash, it's somewhat resolved for me. Maybe that's the issue, that not all players simply use it.
This can be a problem. And it seems that due to these combinations, if we are talking about the meta, there are no differences. The same scrolls, the same leveling up, and something else. And it seems that this overall combination results in a generally not very high playtime and not very high retention. How can this be overcome? It can't be solved off the cuff. I am not a panacea. I can't give you the answer. The only thing that personally came to my mind is to give a light, small dash with each hit. Again, the question arises, who to dash to, like the nearest one. But what if I don't want the nearest one, but another one, for example, the one who is half damaged and wandering around? So, there are a lot of logical points. That's all. I'm done. Ask questions.
We can't ask all the questions. You've touched on very profound topics. And much of what you said, we have indeed noted down as hypotheses to test in the near future. This includes the experiment with the dash button as well. And the issues with controls have really been felt for a long time, as there are many reviews saying that the controls are complicated. And overall, it turns out.
I would also add, if we are talking about control settings, that if you played on iOS devices and used a swipe for dashing at some point the screen, well, I fear that if you swipe sharply upwards, it causes the game to partially minimize. This also happens very often, especially at the moment when there are many enemies that you need to dash away from, like bats and those who shoot or throw bombs. You suddenly start swiping, and essentially, the game doesn't go into pause, but the player gets frustrated because they need to get back to it. It's as if you accidentally alt-tabbed, let's put it that way.
Sasha, your idea about dashing into a hit was interesting. I don't think we've thought about that before, and it really seems like something that could simplify the controls by reducing movement and increasing tapping. This is a simpler action. It seems that there is potential in this. Also, we are considering a hypothesis, an experiment, auto-running and hits, which will be enabled by default. That means the hero will run to the enemies using paths and hit them when he reaches them.
You doing Elder?
Yes, to control, it works. You can tap the screen, and we keep the dash and charge, so you can control.
What's the point? What's the meaning?
It will be and then there's an idle knight who fought alone and that's it.
What is this? Is it farming or a clicker? Yes.
It doesn't work, they seem like they won't work.
The question here is, if we are talking about some kind of battler, right? Well, hypothetically. It makes sense that you can make an auto-battler there, you loot resources, level up, and do something else. But here it seems that the game is not about automation, but rather about your own immediate reaction. And if the AI does it for you, then overall, well, it doesn't matter. You can take a break after each level and not worry at all. By the way, a small hypothesis. Well, with the current retention data, you have nothing to lose. Try to insert an interstitial every second or third instance and see what changes.
No, well, it might have some impact on retention, but at this level, it won't have a significant impact until there is a large audience. As I understand it, your direct users are currently low, and you can try this. But I wouldn't rely solely on this data in the future because the paying audience, or the acquired paying audience, might potentially react differently than even the organic audience, or the one you are seeing now.
Overall, yes, we agree that the focus should probably be on Tuya, on management.
The question here is probably the following. It's probably not about the funnel being completed. Well, the funnel is probably not because the dungeons are uninteresting. The mobs are not set up correctly, or they lack variety. No, that's not it. Everything looks interesting and appealing. That is, from the environment perspective, in my opinion, you have managed to create really good dungeons with different mobs, with different behavior patterns, and some interesting waves. It seems that this funnel is not because the environment is bad, but because the mechanics themselves and the controls are not appealing. And here we need to understand what will happen if we fix this and that, and what the final effect will be. That's all. Then we will deal with these funnels. Plus, in your post-importance analysis, not all data is relevant. Even if you take some Brazil or something else, you can analyze something.
I have another question. Sasha, do you think it makes sense to swap the biomes? Because the very first biome is the same as the archers, meaning green grass, it feels like you are entering yet another clone. But if you take the second biome, with all sorts of skeletons and so on, it looks nicer. At the very least, it visually diversifies the game, because the player might get a different impression.
I would really conduct such a test. Yes, it gets annoying because you go there and it feels like a clone of the Archer, but worse.
I would swap the biomes visually, because the first biome was visually boring to me. I was already thinking of quitting, but I managed to reach level 21 on my first try. Then I saw that the boss and the next biome open at level 25. And I went, upgraded in the shop, and the second biome was already much more visually appealing and interesting to me. Was not so boring and monotonous. Because games like the Archer, they all start practically the same. Green grass, a brown fence, white stones and some barrels, and there is Vaslav Tarnubalov.
We didn't take her seriously, but we should have.
Question is for Sasha. Sasha, have you played Hades?
Not. On PC about Osiris. O about Hades. Hades Sun. A roguelike. A classic. Part 2 was recently released.
You can answer the question, but who has played Gothic the second one? I'm with the guys. Great. Write that the main splash screen is some kind of reference to Gothic.
What do you see with the Aztecs?
Yes. Terisen, Gothic.
This is I love the Aztecs.
There was no influence here.
I don't know. For some reason, I saw exactly this here. I noticed a reference, and also, what I felt was missing. You made a similar set of items to the Lich King from Warcraft, but for some reason, you didn't add Frostmourne. You even tied the set's mechanics, which is cool. So, people who are in the know will understand about the raising of skeletons and the undead, but they didn't add Frostmourne to the shop. That's what I didn't understand. It's like a super obvious move. Why not do it? Well, I understand that it's modeling and it takes time, but if you're planning, then add it.
Partly, our reference was from the game Hades. Hades has similar mechanics to ours. There you run, direct control, also dashes, and various perks. Is this a PC game? Look, it's on PC and the Switch.
How do I control it there? Joysticks, buttons. One hand, 2 buttons. With a mouse plus buttons. 2 of them. When I play roguelike games, I don't know, any fighting games, brawlers, like here I control. Here I use this hand, it doesn't matter if it's a mouse. Here I control with the mouse, here I perform an action. Or, let's say, on this console, I control with this hand, and with this one, I perform an action. A jump with a spin, a kick, a punch, whatever. Here, the controls are still divided. So, you essentially tried to basically attempt to cram the PC-style conditional controls into mobile with a single button. And it will be possible to reproduce the same feelings, impacts, and the same gaming experience by trying to transfer this complex control to one.
Yes, I understand. There is a certain difference. The question was about the fact that there, in theory, you run between mobs, and there is extra combat there. But for some reason, it works, and as we can see, the second part has already appeared.
Did you notice that in the second part, they made running faster? Basically, they did what Sasha was talking about. There, you practically dash with every attack. With any melee attack in the first part, you dash 10 to 15 pixels. This is called a step-in. There is no such thing as standing still and hitting in place. This is only for ranged weapons like the spear and the bow.
Here we have a little the price.
Yes, we have side steps too.
Nate.
Well, apparently, it needs to be done. Actually, you know what? When Sasha mentioned the jumps between mobs, I remembered that. I think it was Denis, in one of the very first versions. There was something like this. You tapped, and the hero, killing a monster, would jump to another monster regardless of the distance. What was that about?
Either the idea or we did it.
We have done before.
No, he started a blog. Turns out that.
Visually, it looked like you were hitting the monster. Let's say you killed a melee fighter, and somewhere further away from you, there is another ranged enemy standing. And without interrupting this tapping, you dashed very quickly to that monster, to that ranged enemy, and then killed it.
I just completely agree with many things that Sasha said about needing to either increase this sidestep, that is, initially, until you understand that there is a dash, you run, and it is very inconvenient. Absolutely. And the second point about the dash, I didn't like the swipe, because if you need to swipe, tap, and so on, it's too many actions tied to one conditional game mechanic. And I would rather press the dash with one hand somewhere on the screen than do everything with one finger. It's inconvenient. This is not Fruit Ninja, where you can do everything quickly without causing any issues with the screens and so on. Regarding the other thing, well, I noticed you. Then I just noted down for myself that you have skills, and at first it seemed to me that they are not divided by their level, like custom, rare, or ethical. Then I saw their level and you get the results. Perhaps this needs to be made more obvious. It's like with the skeletons. First, you summon one skeleton, then two, then three. And on the third time, when you level up, say, the necromancer skill, a skeleton appears that heals you. And on the fourth, fifth time, when you initially level up, on the fifth time, this initial leveling up is not obvious to the player, but as you further improve. This icon, which shows the skill level, is very small, very grey, and it's unclear what it affects. Either this needs to be explained in the tutorial, or it should be made more visually obvious.
This topic was also discussed. It might too strengthen reroll perk for advertising as well.
Rerolls. The button that appears is in the corner. It needs to be placed in a more obvious location.
Regarding re-rolling perks for ads, why re-roll them?
If you want to level up, say, only necromancy.
Why didn't you implement skill rarity copying Hades? It's one of the key elements. Why are you re-rolling? Because you get a simple skill, not something unusual. Yes, 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 I agree.
They ultimately end up at different levels when you upgrade them.
Guys, can I ask a question? Quite an important one about funnels. Kirill and I were just recently studying our funnels, and there was a moment that was not obvious to us. We have a certain percentage of players who complete the first island, let's say 80%. The next step is to start the second island, and between these two moments, there is a significant drop of several tens of percent. It is not obvious to us why the player completed the first island, but then did not start the second.
What do you think? Where can we dig here? There are no upgrade levels. In other words, there are no skills that you improve just a little. Your island is finished. You equipped something there, but usually everyone has a skill table that is upgraded offline. You earn some currency within the game, but this upgrade cycle is illegal. It didn't work out. So you play the game, earn bonuses, points, coins, and then you invest them in upgrades. And the upgrades you have, like weapons, it's not as interesting as permanent skills. In Hades, you upgrade the mirror, and in some archer game, there is also a board of random skills. Well, it's the easiest when you spent 50 coins to get some skill there. You are not leading there, so it seems no offline progression. But there should have been.
It sounds like an improvement, but are these dramatic changes?
Players quit and do not go to the second biome because they do not understand what awaits them. Well, they understand that they are playing yet another clone of the archer.
Well, it needs to be finished. I would still try to make it a big clone of Hades. Yes, yes. It is feasible to add these. Take a Scandinavian setting, add Scandinavian gods, link skills to the gods, and add rarity of skills so people see this is not an archer clone, but a Hades clone. He hasn't seen a Hades clone on mobile yet.
How can we increase, for example, the transition to the second biome? For instance, by giving some kind of reward for completing the first biome. In the second biome, You could go with a new character, but keep in mind to try it with a different animation. And after his death, you can then choose either this or that, then, to give some variety to the player, as they understand that if they go to the second biome, they will essentially have the same fighting experience. I will be dashing there and killing someone, but trying out another player would be interesting.
I finally found this funnel. Correctly understand that less than 20% of players finish the second level. Second one, this is the same place. Skip the second gate. Is that true? Did I read it right? It's a biome. Oh, so 60% completed the first biome, right? That's absolutely amazing.
Among those began.
So, they came to the first level and completed it, started the first biome and finished it, even killed the second boss. Is that correct?
Yes, that's right. And then an anomalous drop-off at the end of the second biome.
They just didn't enjoy playing. They understood how to play in general. They played. They just found something boring and that's it. That's when this argument that they didn't invest anything, didn't level up anything, can be significant. You know what else I didn't like? I killed the first boss, and I expected the biome to be over. The biome is long, they are bored. Try to finish it earlier and provide upgrades.
We conducted the experiment.
The results in the biome weren't invested. You understood nothing, did you? Plus, you know what else is in such games. What's cool? For example, when you play Hades, you don't get any boring skills. Skills change a lot there. Well, in terms of cool skills, for example, I like the lightning dash, where you get a lightning ability. And, by the way, Frost, where some ultimates are cool. I would try to take, exactly, Hades has a lot to take, yes, take there, give lightning to the axe, change the behavior. Let's say, a hammer that changes the weapon's behavior. Instead of 3 hits, it performs a circular attack. The game changes significantly based on skills.
Did you mean weapon?
Both from weapons and skills. Don't give the skill to upgrade strike power. The skill to upgrade strike power, or cringe skill. All these skills are boring. They do not change the gameplay much. It turns out that you go and bash them all the same way, from game to game. The player realizes this, and they understand that their next run will be just like the previous one, so he will keep hitting with these 3 attacks. But in Hades the feeling is different. In Hades, it feels like every game will be different because you pick different boons. Your weapon gets lightning, you combine lightning with ice. Here it freezes, there it strikes with lightning, and there are interesting skills. You enjoy combining these skills. And of course the player keeps replaying the game precisely because of this skill recombination.
I agree with Genya, and for example, I specifically avoided choosing boring options like increasing attack by 30%. If I had the option not to choose it, I always went for necromancy, meaning I maximized necromancy and added something interesting to it, like freezing, lightning, dash, or something else that visually entertained me, because simply increasing damage by 30% is quite dull.
After I killed the boss, the location should have ended and I should have leveled up. Oh, by the way, the chest is really frustrating since it only opens for rewards.
I said yes.
Give half of the rewards, something like that.
I agree that having jars and nuts that can only be opened with a reward is okay, but there should be some alternative, like the ability to skip this reward, and to avoid losing money. Skippable tickets are a very effective mechanism. If you're interested in where this works, check out the game Mock Control. You can see how it works there.
The luck upgrade parameter, which gives skill rarity. Oh, well, that's also in Hades. It's also interesting that you can level up your luck skill outside the game, so rarer skills drop. It's a cool feature. There's a game called Pickle Pet, I think. There's also Survival Oro, but I much prefer Pickle Pet for its mechanics.
Heard the little cuke.
It's a pity, but you do have the option to re-roll for currency with the other players, specifically for the hard currency. However, it's important to note that the currency you get from re-rolling in this context is not actually hard currency. It's what we refer to as soft currency. The distinction here is crucial because, although you might be tempted to spend this soft currency, it's generally advisable to.
Is there only soft currency in this game?
No, there is a re-roll for hard currency, but there is also a re-roll for soft currency, though soft currency is very valuable because you need it to upgrade skills. Really cool mechanics, super cool mechanics.
In some game, seemingly roguelike, I don't remember exactly where, there was an option to re-roll one skill for soft currency, meaning out of the 3 given to you, and for hard currency, you could re-roll all 3. Well, either for a hack or for a reward. You might want to try something similar.
Also with the loot. I didn't like that window. When your stage type ended, right? And you can make a type with 2 coins per video. It's not clear where to spend these coins. They need to be.
For leveling up.
To upgrade within the inventory.
Yes. You have a progression system where the more you upgrade an item, the higher the cost. In the Archer, currency was also spent on upgrades, so to speak, and a random skill was obtained for the character. Here, what I felt was missing is that you have 25 to 30 levels and 1 boss. So, what Genya is talking about is adding the possibility of some kind of leveling up. You can implement it like in the Archer, or like in Hades, with intermediate bosses that drop, for example, a stone that you spend on upgrading attack, health, crit, and crit damage. Add these 4 skills, and they are already, in theory, assigned to the character. There could also be movement speed, right? You already have it assigned to the character, and essentially, you just follow the progression in the same way. The first skill costs 1 stone, which you only get from the boss, and the second skill costs 2 stones, and so on. The drop chance of this stone varies to a 100% drop rate from the tail. The biome and with some chance drops from the intermediate boss. But you can get 100% from all 3. Initially, the player quickly levels up the character, completes the first biome, and then moves faster to the second biome. You can also increase its conversion and transitions there in this way.
You simply have an X2 button that gives you something like XP and coins. I would also draw this loot that you will lose, because you will lose this loot if you don't check the reward. Because this button does not give you an idea of what you will actually gain or what you will actually lose. I'd play with the loss, not with what you will get, but with what you have already received. But if you don't look at the reward, so it won't be taken, yes. And by the way, I would like to say that this is cool, actually, a very good attempt to make a tail overall, but it's risky. But in a way, when I started playing Groove, I looked at it and said, oh, the guy managed to combine these 3 different attack combinations on the touchscreen.
Yes, I liked it too. And I like the animation, how it looks. Well, even if it eventually becomes monotonous after a certain N level. And this is what Genya was talking about. Variety can be introduced in terms of what weapons used, like a hammer, axe, sword, and how they interact. In essence, how it is done in Hades. But the fact that it's all kind of animated is actually cool, and again, the only issue is with the movement, but I found this mode for myself.
Yes, look, the issue with movement, by the way, I think is addressed by the funnel, because 60% still completed 30 levels, which means they were playing.
But problem is retention low.
So, they completed these 30 levels and did not return. Does this indicate niche appeal? No, it indicates that they managed the controls. 60% managed the controls. Out of whom? Do you understand what 60% means? Out of those who played. And how many of those 60 remained afterwards? They finished 30 levels. They completed the first location. If you hadn't managed the controls, why didn't they stay? because not keen on playing. They reached the end, managed the controls, and they understood the controls, unsure if they made it without dashing.
They completed it without dashing. We have statistics on the use of dashes. I have already dealt with this issue. Did you immediately understand that the dash allows you to avoid damage?
Yes, I just wanted to say on the boss, if you dash even in the red zone, if you dash at the last moment, you don't take damage.
But that's your experience, he says, because we don't explain this in the game. It needs to be fixed. Also, if you constantly dash, your fingers still get tired, so you need to. Yes, and players quite. According to the statistics, on average, players typically perform 1.5 dashes per room. There are average players, dash-only players, and those who don't know how to use them. My wife completes the game without using dashes.
Repeat the dash tutorial. Give a cool skin at the beginning.
It can be done, it needs done.
What I find uncomfortable is moving, attacking, and dashing. Everything is tied into one mechanic. And I just turned on the auto attack, because sometimes you need to dash and not lose the attack. Can you turn on auto attacks here? Yes, there's a button in the top left corner. You don't look at the interface, do you? You just.
I am the perfect tester. I see nothing.
From an animation perspective, I liked it. All right, Sergey wanted to ask something.
I actually wanted to comment. I wanted to talk about what we are currently developing, and in part, what we are doing now aligns with your request. Specifically, regarding leveling up outside of the main gameplay, and regarding variety. We currently have a feature where there will be not just one hero in the game, but several. And each hero has a unique ultimate ability, a unique charge, and in addition, each hero also has their own upgrades. So, you are not leveling up the account itself, but rather each hero individually, and there will be separate resources for this. These resources drop from bosses.
Can I ask a question? Regarding the ultimate ability, do you have stats on its usage? I never use it. I don't like it. Neither the animation nor its mechanics.
Ice ult used. It freezes everything.
I tried one, and then I didn't take any more because I didn't like the very first one at all. You just turn into a ball, everything disappears, and I looked at it, but I'm not interested. I want some kind of activity, or it should be some cool, intense animation, something happening on the screen. When a guy just stands there for 3 seconds and then explodes, come on.
We don't seem to have any statistics, although Kirill might correct me. But what you're saying is, in theory, subjectivism. Absolutely. Yes, because I remember exactly that we did playtests, and some playtesters, well, proper playtests, so we could listen to the reactions, so they could be heard. Some were like, wow, that's amazing. It's very interesting to play. He really liked it when it explodes, that balloon in the tutorial. There, everything breaks, barrels, columns, goblins fly away. It's incredible, such a thrill.
I'm telling you, I didn't like that nothing happens on the screen for a long time. Like, 3 seconds of screen time in a 15 to 20 second level is a lot.
I don't like the animation. It's very long. It could be made twice or 3 times as fast.
You can do without it.
Actually, if you press and it happens, or there's a half-second delay, I think that would be cooler. Here are 2 questions for Kirill. How often is the ultimate skill taken, and how often is it used by players?
Regarding how often it is used, I likely won't be able to answer, but I need to look into the analytics for both questions.
The ultimate skill exists. No need to take it.
In the update, heroes get innate ultimates. You won't need to take them as perks.
Rinaz will give us feedback on Path Chewy and probably something else. Rinaz, please go ahead and tell us.
At the very beginning, or at least in the settings, give the option to choose the type of joystick. Floating or static. As a player who does not like a floating joystick, I really miss this feature. Please provide the option to choose the type of joystick. The perks are not original. Mostly, they just improve something X%. Add at least one interesting unique perk to each level. After 3 levels, I was already choosing randomly.
Have you tried upgrading perks? For example, taking one like the Icy one and then an original one appears. It's a non-obvious mechanic.
Icy. No, I haven't seen the Icy one. The upgrade selection UI is designed in such a way that it shows something improving by X% in the foreground, rather than how it actually works. How it works is written below, so I would leave one text where it explains both how it works and how it improves. For example, 2 skeletons appear in place of a killed enemy, then 3 skeletons. Now, look at an example of such a description. Yes, here it shows how it is written. You have it written below how it works, and above. I am only saying this because it looks somewhat unattractive. And the perk icons themselves are also complex and unattractive. I would make them colorful, vibrant, and as simple as possible. It was disappointing when you take a chest, open it, and expect something to drop, but it just goes into the backpack. I would like to see immediately what drops. But if you do that, if you send it to the backpack, then I would make it so that you approach the chest. A small button appears next to the chest, and if it lights up, let's add the icon. If not, just take the chest. Do not show this interface, because when you show the interface, it seems like the player is expected to see something, like a drop.
Guys, can I ask another question? What happens to the reward if the player is offline, like this chest, when they approach, take it, and their internet is off? What happens to the chest? Can they collect it? Can't pick it up. Only closing. That's a little nuance too.
The address is sent to 3 funny letters. It has no internet.
Well, at this point, I would perhaps rework this moment somehow. For example, he could either pick up a chest, and then you show him that he can look at ad and open it. Or he could collect 5 chests. For each ad, either pay a certain amount, or use one skippable ticket if you listen and follow this mechanic. This approach is currently popular in this type of game.
You have a premium subscription, if I remember correctly, right? Yes. Premium users shouldn't be bombarded with ads so much.
Premium users don't watch reward.
They just approached the chest and pressed it. Denis, I wanted to comment on what will happen if there is no internet. In fact, the game simply won't start at all.
If I started the game and then turned off the internet, you won't even be able to start the level. If I already started the game and then turned off the internet.
If you entered the transition while playing adventure, then you can't be able to press this button.
There are many unnecessary locations just to pick up a chest somewhere. Here is some HP. I would move the chest and HP to locations with monsters.
Well, or I would add that they usually place a regular merchant in such a location from the archer, but most likely that was the original intention.
So is this a merchant where you can make upgrades at this point?
Well, there are upgrades there too, like you either choose a heal from him, or, for example, as a reward, like I said, there's some skill.
Look, know what's missing? This is a roguelike. You have gold here, but in a roguelike, there are 2 currencies. One that is inside the game cycle of this period, and it never leaves the core.
Yes, in Hade's lists.
She progresses through many roguelikes in the same way. And it is with this merchant, who is among the locations, that you spend this currency to improve your in-game car-like characteristics, making it easier for you to progress. Or sometimes you can buy something that helps you level up outside of the game. Well, like, when you get a boost, you can buy something. I don't know. I don't remember exactly, but like, some souls or something like that. And they have also made it so that you get this, that you are going through a dungeon from which you can't take out anything except gear. But here you can bring out some special feature that is specifically for, well, offline play, I would say, rather than for leveling up. It's not just for the sake of it, it's cool. Like, you need to do it this way because, for some reason, it's interesting for players to play this way.
Genial, thanks. About the auto attack. I also didn't notice that there is actually a button to enable auto attack. Firstly, it needs to be added to some icon because auto is unclear, and show in the tutorial that this auto attack can be enabled.
I would also add that in the tutorial, you have the option to hold down the attack button to perform a powerful attack. The tutorial only mentions this in the second biome.
Have you tried enabling auto attack? We had this experiment a while ago, more than a year ago. It did not show any difference in retention.
And the levels are not dynamic. I kill all the enemies in 10 seconds, then must move on to the next level. I would reduce the duration, tutorial, and boss locations by the 2nd of March times, but you said that this did not work well. Make the levels somehow more dynamic. I liked it in the location where there are several waves. Have you tried moving the boss earlier, to the 10th location, to the 5th?
We didn't move it. We shortened the first run to 15 rooms. In the 15th room, a boss appeared. You killed it, and the run ended there. It was an experiment.
And you still don't have the option to respawn for reward.
The first time you can respawn at the level, but the second time you cannot.
Usually, as it was implemented in Vorchiro, you choose once for reward or for hard currency. If you chose the reward, then, as far as I remember, at least in previous versions of the game, there was an option to revive a second time for hard. Like, to leave more precisely to capture, and I think they removed it if I lose. It seems now there is only one time. Yes, but before they had two such opportunities, one reward, one hard. Well, they probably removed it because most people used the reward and progressed further. Maybe they wanted to slow down the content and the speed of progression this way. Well, I don't know.
You didn't see the revive, because we removed it from the tutorial run.
But this is an opportunity.
I want to say that first and foremost, I would definitely focus not on the economy, but on retention. The fact that we see a first day retention of 20% is quite a big deal. Yes, we can theoretically manage the economy with those skippable tickets and so on, but until we definitely and thoroughly address retention, we can't talk about any serious scaling of this game.
I probably have a question for Andre, or the team in general. Guys, have you calculated at what retention rate you achieve positive funnels?
We haven't counted it. I'll probably calculate it in the next few days.
There is always the concept of benchmarks, right? Some kind of guidepost that helps you understand where you are now. 20% in your game is very little. I would even say that 30% for your game might be too little. For this type of game, the first day retention should be 35 to 40%, because retention is a downward function for us, meaning it will always decrease. And the greater the distance it starts to decrease, the higher the likelihood that your funnel will close. I also want to point out that retention on Android and iOS may start to differ. And remember that the tolerance for advertising on Android and iOS is also different, as are purchases. The tolerance for purchases and advertising also varies across different countries. Your game needs to implement a hybrid economy. It can only be a hybrid one. I would aim for a 70 to 30 split, meaning 70% in-apps, 30% recvans.
I would aim for a 70 to 30 split, 70% in-app, 30% Rex. In summary, we are working on retention. I like the idea of making this game Idle Hero. Why not? I want to make Hades. A proper one. The project is in the spirit of the Archer, but not the Archer. And in principle, it turned out very, very well. I will be asking subscribers to subscribe, like, and ask questions. Finally, colleagues over there. Denis, you could say a word or two from the development team's perspective if you have anything to add.
I want to say a big thank you to you guys for your attention to our project. And everything you said, it really, half of it resonates, and half of it was new and interesting. Your professionalism and deep experience in the industry are evident. Therefore, I am grateful for this opportunity that fate has given us to communicate with each other today. Yes, the problem is retention. Why are we looking at retention and monetization? This is partly because we are indie and we need to invest wisely and not incur losses. Therefore, we are approaching this in a somewhat hybrid manner. But of course, the retention problem is old and complex, and we are trying to solve it. I hope that the hypotheses we have strengthened together and the new ones we have found will help us. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rultov.
Thank you very much, everyone. Goodbye.
Have a good day.